If you're listening and went to World Youth Day, feel free to comment down below and tell us about your experience.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is the Interested Catholic podcast, and today we have something very special.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of the Interested Catholic podcast. Finally, we have a third episode. So today, as Aiden mentioned, we have a very special episode. We are doing World Youth Day 2023. Not just World Youth Day, but we do finally have a very special guest, and we are so thankful that she is able to join us. So she does attend Durbanville Parish. She is also part of the youth chaplaincy. She works for the Archdiocese as the youth coordinator. She also does RE coordinator at CPC. The list is endless, but Dominic Jan, welcome to episode 3 of the Interested Catholic podcast.
Wow, thank you guys. Thank you for having me.
So, first thing, you went to Lisbon. How was that?
Well, I first went to Lisbon last year as part of the Prepatory World Youth Day conference, where we could get a bit of a sneak peek as to what could be expected. So we met at Fatima and we got to meet the mayors of Lisbon, and we got to go to the place where the stage would later be built, where the Vigil and the final Mass with Pope Francis would take place. So I saw how everything looked before all the chaos, before all the craziness, before almost 2 million people were all there. And wow, when we arrived in Lisbon, it was actually great, having the World Youth Day signage as you arrive at the airport. You could definitely feel a spirit of like, we're coming into something special. It's like seeing your name, like, I'm there for this. These people know me. We have something in common, and we have a common goal that we are working towards. And yes, Lisbon was a lot like what I remembered, but also completely different because there were literally so many more people there, and the experience was amazing.
You said there were 2 million people there. That's quite a bit. Do you remember how many people came from South Africa?
There were around 300 or just over 300 from South Africa as a whole, and there were about 74 that came from Cape Town specifically. But there were a whole lot of smaller groups as well as the diocesan groups between all of that. And some only came to Lisbon for the actual World Youth Day week or for the main vigil and mass, whereas some of us attended from the days in the diocese already, which was from the 26th of July.
So, 26th of July
Until the 30th was the days in the diocese, and then from the 1st to the 6th was officially the World Youth Day week.
Okay, and after World Youth Day week, did you spend any other time with them in Lisbon?
Our specific group had one extra day, and most of us decided to go to Fatima on that day just to be able to experience that.
Okay.
I mean, you know what? Even though other group went this year, let's just quickly take it back to all the way when you first went. The experience was before COVID, because let's all keep in mind this experience was completely different because this was after COVID. This was when everyone now is kind of gone back to reality, but also not. So let's just quickly take it back and let's just rewind to that first time you went, because this was your second time?
Yes, I went to World Youth Day in Kraków, Poland in 2016. And there was another World Youth Day in 2019.
Yes.
And the one in Lisbon was actually supposed to take place a year ago. But because of the pandemic, they have to shift it a year later. And thank goodness, because they really needed that time to prepare. But the first time I went, I was a pilgrim with the diocesan group, but we were only like 9 people. So it was nice to be in a small group, and we traveled everywhere together. We also did the days in the diocese, and that was really the best and most memorable time for me, because we stayed with the family. I was alone with my family. You really get to immerse yourself in the culture and with the language. There was one day when the younger woman who was the translator wasn't there, so I realized how I needed Google Translate and how I needed connection to even speak and converse with the people. But the people from the parish that led all of our activities, they were mostly teenagers, and I was in my early 20s at the time. So to be able to see these very young youth people leading us in our faith. And sometimes our local teenagers, you have to kind of push them to do something out of their comfort zone. But they're just so freely and openly worshiping God, playing their instruments. Like here you have to, do you play an instrument? Can you join our band? And then you have to be on a mission to get them to do that. And there it's just like so embraced, and just to be led by young people really showcased how capable young people are and how underestimated we are. And some of the group members were older than me, so to be led by people younger than you was quite a great experience. And then we moved to Kraków, where the main World Youth Day was then, and again it was great also with over 1 million people all coming together in the same place with Pope Francis again.
I want to know, start to finish, preparation, the flight, landing, the experience, and leaving. How did that go?
This experience was completely different. When I went to the preparatory meeting conference, we ambushed them with questions. How are you going to account for people with like mental illnesses, where those kind of crowds would be super overwhelming? It's going to be in the middle of summer. It's going to be so hot. How are we going to keep hydrated? The African countries, my goodness, we are always rejected with regards to our visas. So how were they going to assist us to make sure that we were as inclusive as possible? Because there's so many Catholics from Africa, and yet they don't have the equal opportunity to go. And unfortunately, that was still a huge issue, as much as the dicastery and the committee tried to help us. South Africa was actually, they had the highest number of visas granted in the whole of Africa. So it's great for us, but it also goes to show that how few were permitted. And if they did, it was very late notice. So the planning was very unfortunate there. And there was still so much that we didn't know. So when we had our preparatory gatherings as our diocesan group, and we invited the other parishes that also had groups attending to join us, and it was very prayerful, like what does the journey actually mean? What does a pilgrimage actually mean, and what can we expect? And obviously most people wanted to know the logistics. So when are we arriving? When are we going here? What all are we going to see? And part of the pilgrimage was literally just letting go and embracing whatever we end up doing, because the days in the diocese is controlled by the local organizers. So we just have a date that we're going there, but we didn't know where we were going to sleep until maybe like a week or two before the time. We knew we would be at a school gym, but we didn't know exactly where. We didn't know if there would be mattresses or anything, or if we would be on the floor.
Oh no.
So we told them, and I showed them, I bought my air mattress. It would take up 3 kilograms of what I had on my
what air mattress is this?
Luggage. But it was so worth it, and we definitely needed it later on. But we literally had to tell people, prepare for anything. And I couldn't use my previous experience because I stayed with a family before. So we literally had no idea. There were quite a few of us that had been to various World Youth Days previously, but you couldn't fully be prepared for what we expected. And even though I had gone to Lisbon before, like I traveled by bus. And here we got, as soon as we arrived and we registered for the actual World Youth Day, we received like this yellow card that helped us go onto the metro trains and to all of the buses. So you just click,
like
and then and it's like endless. You can go wherever you want, which was super convenient. But figuring out and navigating the system and where we were staying was challenging, and it took time to adjust. And then just as you adjust, some of those stations and things were closed, or they were no longer working because the Pope was going to be there, or it was going to be very congested, so they had to close it off because of numbers. So you just had to embrace not knowing and learning to accept that. So when we arrived in Lisbon, we hopped on a bus and we went to where we stayed for the days in the diocese. And then we got to this hall. We were greeted by a huge group of Guatemalans who didn't speak a word of English. Because it was a very small town, many of them could speak English either. So we had our limited few that we had to converse with all the time. And later on, people from France and Canada also joined us. And each morning basically started with walking to the local church where we celebrated Mass. On our first day, we went to the mayor's office, which is literally just like a few meters away. And she gave us a few gifts. We got t-shirts and sling bags. And throughout all the days, we got to explore the city, immersing in their culture. We had cultural performances. We got to visit vineyards. We went to like a river beach, man-made beach, which was really awesome. And we went to Montserrat, which is a medieval castle looking at the border between Portugal and Spain. So it's
that's
like,
cool.
we can just go there, you know. And the river beach was also like you could just swim across to the other side. And we got to visit the elderly and work with those who were disabled or challenged. And it was so amazing that they taught us origami. That was one of my highlights.
Oh,
there.
that's cool.
Like, we had different rounds that we could visit different stalls, and they all taught us a different way of using origami. And it was so beautiful and informative, and they were just amazing. And you didn't need to be able to converse or speak the language.
Just follow
It's
the-
just having that experience and love, and they had so much joy, which was beautiful to experience. And having some downtime too, like just having fun at the local cafe and at the local pool where we could just cool down in that excruciating heat. And on the last day of the days in the diocese, we all went to the castle, and there was like an old bullfighting arena that we all got to watch the sunset from, which was absolutely stunning. And we all performed like local cultural songs and dramas and skits and dances, and you know, like the Waka Waka and Jerusalem,
of course it
got
did come up.
everyone going. Yes, so that was a winner. Fortunately and strategically, we were placed last, so we basically started
was
the
time.
party.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then everyone was exhausted, and the next day we then traveled to Lisbon, where we registered, just got settled in, and we just tried to figure everything out. We got placed in a new gym, and the first thing we did was find food. We also got like name tags with a barcode, so you can just scan your barcode twice a day, which permits you to a lunch and supper meal. And we just needed to find the restaurants that were compatible with pilgrim meals. Yes.
Sorry, you said you go to gyms. Is that where you guys slept overnight, or?
Yes, so in the days in the diocese and for the World Youth Day week, we slept at sports gymnasiums.
Okay.
So in Lisbon, it wasn't necessarily associated with the school, it was a standalone sports gym. And we were joined by like 80 other people. At least there were more English speaking countries from the US and from New Zealand and Canada. But we barely got to see each other because you literally just go there to sleep, and then you wake up and you have to go to breakfast. And they lock the gymnasium in between because of the safety of all of our personal belongings. So you need to make sure that of the limited showers available for those hundreds of people, that you shower some point between like 11 o'clock at night and 7 o'clock in the morning, so that you can be out for the rest of the day. And it was challenging just to get to days in the diocese because you're already in a new space. For a lot of people, it was their first time traveling. And you're definitely outside of your comfort zone. A lot of us had sore feet because you're walking everywhere.
Yeah, there's nothing about taking an Uber from destination A to destination B.
I saw,
Definitely not there.
I saw people were posting. I was following someone, and they were saying, every day we walk something like 30,000 steps. I was like, no, I can't do that.
Easily. And it's like, oh no, we're just going to the church, just around the corner, my foot. It's a far corner away. But you know, we walked that town flat and we knew exactly where everything was
that's cool.
by the time we left. But then just as everyone got comfortable, we then had to up and move and move to the next place where we had to readjust. And it's a mental and physical thing. But that's ultimately what the pilgrimage was all about. And I try to remind the group as well that God works not only in our comfort zones and where we always are, but in our most vulnerable spaces. So we had to be open to that and whatever challenges may come. We found so much grace at our local mall, Strada Mall, where we got an opportunity not only to eat and freshen up, but charge our devices. And that was just like a saving grace, just to be able to sit and relax and know that you can see to things that we take for granted that we can just do at home every day, you know. And from there we made our way to wherever we needed to be. So during the days of the World Youth Day, we always had the opportunity to have like a catechism where bishops from around the world would do like a talk, and we'd have adoration and mass and confessions, and there'd be a local younger group that would lead some activities or singing and things in between as well. So that was very interesting. We had one not too far from where we were staying, and it was literally in like this urban park, but it looked like super run down. We weren't staying in the most affluent part outside of Lisbon. But to think you're celebrating mass and having adoration in that kind of odd space. So you don't, even though the churches there are absolutely stunning, you can come to the Lord, to the presence of the Lord anywhere.
Any area, any environment also.
Exactly. But we as a group decided to start our day off in prayer all together, and then we split up afterwards because we were just outside of Lisbon in Odivelas, and we discovered early on that it takes quite a while to get to the places that we wanted to be with the other events. So there was like the City of Joy where, oh my goodness guys, if you've ever seen a mass of confessionals, it was at the City of Joy. They built these beautiful wooden like confessional boxes, and they were separated like kind of by language where you can choose which priest to go to, but it was filled with priests, filled with great opportunities, and it was near the ocean and near like this whole box of festivities where there were different stalls where you can find out more about organizations that you can learn more about or be a part of. And the ones that are like close to my heart is the stall that I assisted at for a bit, which was for the International Youth Advisory Body. And that stall basically asked the question of what as a young person do you want to see in the church?
Okay.
So it was giving young people a voice because we value that so much. And not far next to us was a stall on the synod. Also just wanting to hear from the voice of young people and help them recognize how important that is. And even now, those sticky notes that people wrote on are being used, they're being published. So people can see what the young people are saying. But there were so many great things. There were Youth Caritas, there were Life Team stalls on net and everything. And a lot of them ran events throughout the time as well. So quite a few of from our group went to a Life Team XLT where Randy Rouse, the CEO of Life Team, was present. And then while some were there, I was so mad that this was happening at the same time, but some of us went to Bishop Robert Barron's talk at the local university. So to have seen him in person and listen to him was so inspirational, but also exhausting because we learned that we had to be there early to stand in line. So we were literally in the sun waiting for this event because previous events we wanted to go to, it was just full capacity. There were only a limited space. So you have to really pick what you wanted to do and then plan accordingly. So sometimes, unfortunately, we missed catechesis so that we could go there in time. And then most evenings, like on the Tuesday, the first day, we had the opening mass. And that was, at that stage, it should have been just over 300,000 people. So I had the opportunity to do a bidding prayer in Afrikaans, you know. It was actually crazy because I didn't write it, they gave it to me. But you could see that was Google translated Afrikaans. And I'm like, well, what if I read this? How many people would actually know? And then thank goodness I made a way to change it and get permission to change it because it was already printed and in the main book like on the lectern.
Oh no.
So I had to adjust it on a piece of paper that I found and just brought it in because it ended up being on national television. And I'm like, if
someone is watching this from South Africa and like the Afrikaans,
I would never have heard the end of that. And I'm from the northern suburbs, so you have to be able to speak
exactly
Afrikaans.
Afrikaans is the point.
But you know, at the time, that was the highlight for me, being able to sit on the stage and just look out at that sea of people, all respectful, praising God in that moment during Mass. And I happened to sit right next to this orchestra, this choir, which consisted of 200 people that
coordinating
was
that.
so harmonious, so beautiful. They didn't have like the usual creed before the prayers of the faithful. So I was sitting out, I was listening to whatever they were saying. I didn't understand, but it was just stunning.
Yes.
And they actually had to call me to come and go because I
you were so
wasn't
in the
moving.
moment, yes.
Exactly. So eventually, after ruffling a few chairs, because I was like, oops, I need to go. And everything was so smooth. Like, I mean, I was speaking in front of so many people. I didn't know it was televised or anything, but I just felt so calm and at peace in that moment, and just tried to take that all in, especially after the chaos of the day. Because first Bishop's Conference thing that we did, or event that we had, was the Holy Hour, where we got as many of the pilgrims from South Africa, Botswana, Eswatini together for adoration and a talk from the local bishops. So that was our first stop, and that happened to be close to St. Anthony's churches. So we got to walk into those absolutely beautiful churches, and the team of volunteers had such great ideas on how to get. I mean, I don't think you needed an excuse to go into those churches and pray, but they tried to entice you and encourage you to do those things. So that was pretty cool, and the views over like that lake and seeing the other side of Lisbon from there.
I mean, it must be a really beautiful place.
It is. It really was. And I mean, they're quite old as well. Like in Cape Town, buildings and things are relatively new, except for like the city center and things sometimes. But to see how well they are built, that they are still standing, and how proud the locals are of their heritage was really a great experience. So I'm not going to lie, in the moment, a lot of it was very overwhelming. It's like, can we just get to where we need to be on time? And then if we get there, can we just have space to be comfortable and see what we needed to see and hear what we needed to hear?
Before we do it.
Exactly. But you know, we were never alone because we always had each other. And what was nice about the size of our group this time is that each day you can spend time with a different group, you know? So you're not like sick of the people that you're with because it changes all the time. It's up to you. We did have that freedom to navigate like that as we wanted. So I literally told them, you can go wherever you want afterwards. And we had opportunities to share synodally on our experiences and how we felt. At the end of the day, I think that everyone could get something out of it. But the pinnacle point and aspect was the vigil on the main Saturday, where we all tried to make our way to our block C, which was literally millions of people away from the main stage. So, as part of the Vatican's International Youth Advisory Body, on that Saturday, I had to help be part of a presentation again. So, I had to say goodbye to my group while we were trying to wait for food, which was also a mission to get, because we got this meal pack that would sustain us for the Saturday afternoon and evening, as well as the Sunday morning and afternoon. And some places had run out, and I'm like, we need to get to the block to secure our spots just so we can
make
sit.
sure that there's space and everyone is there and the entire group is together.
Because we were going to stay, we did stay over there that evening. So it wasn't just a place that you can stand. You needed to be able to lay down in that area.
I saw, with the pictures, people had like mats out and...
So it's just like
Sleeping
they were living their
bags.
best lives indirectly. It was cool.
So I thought I would walk to that block with everyone and then I'd make my way to the stage afterwards.
Yeah.
No. I'm glad we had to split up at that point, because by the time I got to the stage, my friends were already on the stage and I had just one line to do, but I literally just put my t-shirt on to match everyone else, and then I just slipped in, said my line, and then we ended up leaving. But I'm really glad that I made it there anyway, even though it was just for that one line, so that I could also be a part of the group. It was quite challenging for me personally to navigate between those responsibilities while also taking care of the group, but also giving the group space to do what they needed to do, but also be together at certain times. So that balance was quite challenging. And I was also a chaperone for a young confirmation student from my group at the school that I teach, and that was great just to be with more young people too. And fortunately he could get a pass because I had a pass and I was a chaperone. So he was with me at the back of the stage, and we got to experience Pope Francis coming through. And I must say, they made great efforts to make sure that as many people could experience encountering him as possible through the routes that he drove around in his little Pope mobile onto the stage. But we got to see him quite closely, and we know that he just had an operation. We know that he's been struggling with his health, but the joy that he came with in that experience was really awesome to see. And even though all the chaos was happening, we had adoration that evening, and just after that we decided to make our way to the end of that huge group. But everyone was silent in that moment of adoration. All these young people just having a common spiritual moment and making the best of it. So that was stunning. But at the same time, at the same moment, my heart just sank because I had this huge backpack with all my stuff for that weekend on me, and I had to navigate my way across millions of people to find where the rest of the group was. And wherever the natural path would take us to go there, they would block us off. So it's like you continuously being stopped wherever we went. We had to climb over fences, under bridges, through crowds to eventually get to our spot. And then when we got there was no space for us because even our group had to fight for some spots just to be able to sleep somewhere. So the teen and I slept on a highway, and that's pretty cool to say. Now I slept overnight on a highway, and you know what? It was pretty comfortable.
Okay.
So our group was literally right next to all the portaloos, right next to these taps that ran out onto the area where people were sleeping. So it was quite muddy and everything. So you can't compare that to how a homeless person sleeps because it's completely different circumstances. But it certainly does humble you with a completely different experience because we weren't in hotels. We didn't have even proper beds throughout that entire time. So it was really an opening experience. Especially coming back to South Africa, you realize how much we have to be grateful for. Even though we literally came back in the middle of the taxi strikes. So that was
South Africa.
Quite an adjustment, knowing that all of this was going on in South Africa, and that was certainly in our prayers, along with all of the other prayers of the youth and the parishes that we came from that sent us intentions. And then the Sunday morning, we all woke up to the techno music from
the
one
DJ.
of the priest DJ,
Yes, I saw that.
Padre was amazing. And you can't help but, it doesn't have to be your type of music, but you can't help but smile when you wake up to that.
It kind of feels that you kind of still have a South African feel to it. So even though you're away from home, you're still waking up to it, and it kind of feels like you're waking up to a club. In a club, but you're actually waking up and there's hundreds of thousands of people around you, and they're all here for one reason. And I think that must be one of the most beautiful experiences ever, because if I just sit and listen to you, you sleep on a highway.
And that's the beauty in it, because you don't have a choice.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I'm just thinking, you sleeping on a highway, you going across, jumping over fences, doing all these crazy things, but yet at the end of the day, it humbles you in such a way that you come back to South Africa and you just want to, I think it would make me just want to run back to my parish and just praise God so much more than what I'll really do, because you know that experiences that you had and you were just all there. I remember the second episode, the end of the second episode, I said, remember why you are going there. You're going there for one reason, and that's for Jesus. And you know the fact that you had to endure all of that, but yet it was just one reason and one reason only. And I think that is the beautiful part of it. You got to meet, well, not meet, but you got to see Bishop Padre. And that is one of my big dreams that I do have. Just to even if I could get a signature on a paper, anything. And then also the main one, the Pope. What was that experience like? Because this is your second experience that you saw Pope?
Well, when we were in Poland, I got to see him up close as well. And then in 2019, I represented South Africa by attending a youth forum. So at that moment at the Vatican, I got to shake hands and introduce myself with Pope Francis.
I saw that on social media. I think it was on the Youth Chaplaincy page or something like that.
Yes.
And you basically lived a lot of young people's dreams. that I can say. So you shook his hand, but you also shook his hand for A lot of other youth in Cape Town,
Yeah.
South Africa. That
And I may not have washed the scarf that I wore that day. But when I shook his hand and I said, I'm Dominique from South Africa.
Yes.
Like, South Africa. And he had such a genuine, positive light shine through him. Like, he's not great at English, let's be honest.
No, he's
But you don't have to understand his language to understand what he's
The
saying
message,
or,
yeah.
what he wants to get across. So that same joy was confirmed at this World Youth Day. That same positivity, that same light. And even throughout the main messages he had throughout that week. The first one that really stood out to me, which points and alludes to synodality, is that everyone is a part of the church. And he wants to ensure that everyone feels that way, that they know and you are confirmed that you are part of the church and God loves you. And even if you do not know any other theology in the church, this is not what Pope Francis is saying, but this is how I feel, that despite all of that, if you know that God loves you, that is the main thing that matters. If you remember anything at all, it should be that. And later on, he added that the youth, especially with all of the dreams that may seem like it's impossible to achieve, should not be afraid. Do not be afraid and go for it, because nothing will happen in our little comfort zones.
Yes.
And I think that's where the comfort zones really played a huge part, that at times people were afraid in this new experience that we had. And yet, if we embrace Pope Francis' message, we can remind ourselves of all that we are capable of if we have faith and let the Lord lead us to what we want to do.
Yeah, probably our biggest experiences or our greatest experiences come from when we're outside of our comfort zone. That's a big one. Going outside your comfort zone, going outside the country. Are you going to the next one, 2027?
I would like to. I mean, I've always wanted to go to South Korea, to be honest. It's South Korea.
Yeah.
I think when I previously spoke to you, you know, in my head, it's like we could have done this, we could have done that. But after really reflecting on everything, I think we did the best that we could with what we had at the time, and I actually wouldn't change it, because I'm very critical of myself. So it's like, I could have done this better, maybe I could have, should have, whatever. But I think we experienced what we experienced for a reason. And even just, if you haven't already looked, go to Catholic Youth CT and check out all of our reels on Instagram and Facebook. Because when I was putting those together, even though I was overwhelmed in the moment, I realized how many blessings we had and how much I have to be grateful for, and all that we actually got to experience. So it really put things into perspective. And now I'm looking more forward to the next World Youth Day, because I think after that I was exhausted, I was tired, I went straight back into work afterwards. So I needed that time to really process. And I think for a lot of our pilgrims, they felt the same way, in that we could really realize all that we had gone through and all that we could take away from it. And we really grew as like a little family from it. Like, we will never forget each other and what we experienced, and no one experienced what we did other than us, other than ourselves. So that was really beautiful.
Did you must have made some friends from other countries.
That was one of the most exciting parts. A lot of us brought like little souvenirs or just something that we can exchange. And you know, it's like South Africa was that golden ticket, because everyone wanted a piece of South Africa. Everyone wanted to meet us. They saw the flag, they were like, even though they didn't understand the language. So yes, so many photo opportunities, so many opportunities for engagement. And yes, when you're sitting next to strangers at Mass, you end up speaking and chatting, and even at the airport. So quite a few of us got to exchange contact details, and hopefully those kinds of conversations and friendships will expand beyond that, especially with the friends that we made in Portugal in the days in the diocese. Those are lifelong friends. They took care of us. We formed such a bond. They're already planning to come visit us in Cape Town, so it's a done deal.
You were talking about the Mass, the main Mass. Did you guys ever do hymns?
Throughout the World Youth Day week, some of the activities was Teze, so you could go to one of those experiences. There weren't Teze chants per se for the actual masses. Those were liturgically led by the orchestra, by the choir.
Okay.
So yeah, what was so different is that obviously with 2 million people, how are you going to distribute communion, right?
That's a big one, yes.
I saw that on social media and I was like, how did that even happen?
So they had like little altars or tables and cloths and tents in each of the blocks, and there were designated extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion within each of those blocks. So the Pope like consecrated all of the hosts from where he was on the stage to everyone in front of him. So that was quite an experience in itself. And yes, communion, everything ran as it would. And that's the great thing, even if you don't understand the language, you know exactly what's going on in Mass.
Yeah.
And at the end, Pope Francis announced the Youth Jubilee, which would take place in 2025 in Rome.
Okay.
As well as South Korea hosting the next World Youth Day in 2027. So we have dates for the Jubilee.
Yes.
But we have no other information besides that. But what I do have from the Archdiocese is a WhatsApp group from people that have already shown interest.
Yes,
We just got back and it's like,
yes.
I want to go to this.
Yes, because you've seen everything on social media, but still social media is nothing compared to the experience that you love and the group also that you love. So what's happening next? We've got a Jubilee happening next year. We've
Yes.
got World Youth Day happening 2027. Aiden, Corpus Christi, we are going to make this happen.
We need to get it started.
We are going to make this happen.
Do
I'm telling
it.
you,
Yes.
before 2023 ends, we will have a set plan. And just a quick announcement before you do say what's going to happen next with regards to the Jubilee. For anyone, any youth, the ages is between the ages of 18 and 35.
35, yeah.
Well,
Is it still 18 to
youth is considered from 14.
Okay.
So, yeah, you can have minors there as well.
Well, yeah, she did mention confirmandi.
Yes,
Yeah,
which I know, but
So youth and young adults.
yeah, youth and young adults.
I was just thinking about it, sorry, when you were talking about, World Youth Day happens every 3 years.
Three or 4 years.
Okay, because I was thinking to myself, I'm at a certain age now, and if I go to every single World Youth Day, I'll have a maximum of 3. And I was like, no, that's not enough. Yeah.
Well, that's what will happen with me. I'll officially not be a young adult after the South Korea one. So that's what I'm aiming for. Then I would have done my 3. 3 is a good number. Yeah, and it's a different continent, which is very interesting. Good to embrace as well.
So, any youth and young adults from Corpus Christi, this is the official announcement. We are making this announcement on episode 3. If you are interested and if you really want to join us, 2027, it does sound quite long and it does sound like, oh gosh, it's like
It
10
will
years.
fly.
But I mean, this year is almost over. So please make contact with myself or Aiden and let us know if you want to join us in the planning, in joining us with World Youth Day, anything like that. Please let us know. But Dominic, where to from here?
Again, just waiting for more information. So at this point, we have WhatsApp groups for the people that are interested so that when we do have information, we can relay and share that more easily. So yes, people, Corpus Christi, youth, young adults, just make your interest known now because you can start preparing and fundraising.
Yes,
and
that's very important.
The sooner you start with that, the better. There's nothing stopping you from starting now already. So please, unsure, just start going for it now already. And the Archdiocese will make announcements as soon as we know what's happening.
Yes,
Everything's still very fresh. But we're excited. There's quite a lot of interest. So we were 74 this year and we're hoping to be even more at the next one.
Well, I mean, if we can aim for 100,
Why
That's a
not?
good one.
if South Africa can aim for 100 in 2027, then by all means. Because I mean, sorry, there was no one from Corpus Christi this year. So we are
going to be the first.
We are going to be the first. I don't know when was the last time Corpus Christi actually joined. I don't recall. I think again, once again, we're going to make this announcement and it's going to be official that the next World Youth Day, Corpus Christi is going to be there. No matter if we have to sleep wherever, we are going to be there.
Amazing. I'm not being pessimistic, but just be pre-warned that South Korea is quite expensive. Flights alone, let alone the cost of living there, even if we do sleep in schools and stuff. So start saving, start fundraising. It's not impossible. You can achieve anything if you're willing to put in the work to do that, but preparation is key.
I was looking at Lisbon's announcements for the World Youth Day page, and they were saying you need a minimum of so much. And I looked at it and I converted it to
The conversions.
I was like, this is gonna hurt. It hurt my soul.
It's so sad. Look, the amount that we expected, I mean, we told people 35,000 just to be safe, but it ended up being like 28 for all that we did. And for 2 weeks, that's really not bad. But what's great about joining the group is that you get discounted rates as a group. So join the Archdiocesan group.
Must be nice.
One of my favorite experiences was experiencing the concert of Father Robert Galea. And a few of my parishioners had spoken to me about it, like, yes, I'm sure he's going to be there because he's quite good on social media. He's a young priest with a great testimony, very passionate about vocations. And I had no clue who this man was. And when I got there, I was like, where has this been all my life? Now I'm checking him out on YouTube and all of his talks and things. He's really amazing.
Oh, so he's a speaker.
Yes. A lot of people started following him during COVID to kind of have a virtual mass with him because we could anywhere around the world. He's from Malta, but he's now based in Australia. But really such a strong message, especially for young boys. He's so relatable. I mean, he even posts like post-gym things. But his message is really good for youth, young people, and anyone really. But I just want to encourage people to be open to World Youth Day and what it could have an impact on in your life. You know, just put it out there, pray about it, and take the risk of joining. Catholic means universal, but really attending one of these events really made it feel universal. So there was the name and then that actual encounter and experience. And if you do decide to join, just remember, it's not a holiday, it's a pilgrimage. So you need to mentally and physically prepare yourself to endure that. And it's not about suffering, it's not about necessarily being uncomfortable, but it's just being open to whatever we might have in store, and that it's okay, and that we can overcome all of that through our faith. I mean, no matter what we experience, we all here today, we're all fine, we all at home and
back with your family.
Exactly. So literally made like the impossible possible.
I really appreciate hearing all of that.
Wow. I am in awe at your experience, the person that you are, everything that you are doing for the youth. And wow, thank you so much for your time and your efforts and your hard work, not just for taking the group on World Youth Day, but also your efforts that you do in the Archdiocese and the work that you do to represent the youth. I mean, it's I think I mentioned like 4 things that you do, but I know there's, well, we don't want to call it titles, but it's all these blessings that you are doing. So once again, Dominic, thank you from myself and Aiden. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for speaking about World Youth Day. And once again, thank you for all that you do and all that you are in the Archdiocese and representing the youth and all of those things. So we look forward to many more of these, sitting down with us, many more experiences. And we hope that we will see you in, God willing, 2027.
Yes, I'll see you there. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for having this podcast. I hope all of the listeners are really getting something out of it. And thank you for having this platform to inspire them.
So thanks again, guys, for coming out and listening to this. Hopefully this has inspired you a little bit more. Be more intrigued and more interested in what's to come. Also, for those interested in coming on the podcast, you're more than welcome to. Thank you. We'll see you in the next one.